Very glad you've joined us this morning. Thanks very much. For those that haven't been to one of the sessions before, my name's Tyler, and Yaara this morning is in a different box and still with us this morning too. So thanks again for joining us for SustainabiliTEA number 11. As you can see, we're going to be talking about the Adelaide National Park City this morning. Hope you've got your beverage with you this morning. My carbon neutral Adelaide cup here that I've got, and so for our 11th SustainabiliTEA that we've made too. So how about that? As we continue on. Excellent. Well, thanks again, everyone. And so we can kick off. I'll pass it over to Yaara for an acknowledgement of country, and then we'll get on to our presentation with Dr Sheryn Pitman. Thanks very much, Yaara.
Thanks, Tyler, and good morning, everyone. Or as we say, Nina Mani, to which you respond, Mani I could hear it in my head. We acknowledge that we're meeting today on Tandanya, land of the Ghana people, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We also recognize that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders have a strong connection to people and culture and the world of plants, animals, and stars. The land is alive with traces of dreaming ancestors, which is really beautiful, and is something that we'll probably touch upon a bit later in the presentation, Dr. Pitman. And if I may pass on to you and let you introduce yourself and tell us all about Adelaide National Park City.
Thank you very much. I'm Sheryn. I've been almost a year with this project with Adelaide National Park City. I have a multidisciplinary background, including working with Inspiring South Australia for science engagement and science communication with the Botanic Gardens of South Australia for a number of years with the Green Infrastructure Program, with Greening Australia, doing habitat restoration and revegetation projects. Currently the chair of Water Sensitive South Australia. And education-wise, my PhD explores ecological literacy and what we know and understand about nature, and who knows. So I'm the project lead for Adelaide National Park City. As I said, joined almost a year ago, and I'm going to tell you the story of that now. So first of all, what is a national park city? National parks are places where people have special relationships with nature and culture. And national park cities are not national parks, but are inspired by them. So this journey began in London some years ago when people began to ask those very important questions about the future of cities. With a majority of the world's population now living in urban environments, there are growing concerns about the health and well-being of citizens, impacts on the natural world from urbanisation, and the consequences of a changing climate. So it was time to imagine alternative futures for cities and their surrounds. And the National Park City movement was formed to do just this. It asked what-if questions, such as what if everyone had access to high-quality green space? What if our streets were greener and there were more birds in our cities? So the vision is to make cities rich with nature, where people and nature are better connected. And so the National Park City Foundation was founded by Dan Raven Ellison and Alison Barnes to take the world on a journey to transform cities to be greener, healthier, wilder, fairer, and more resilient. And together with World Urban Parks and the Salzburg Global Institute, this movement then began in earnest. So Adelaide was involved early. Back in October 2018, Adelaide hosted the second International Forum on National Park Cities and contributed to the development of the Universal Charter. In July 2019, London became the world's first national park city, and South Australia's then Minister for Environment and Water and Green Adelaide's Director, Brenton Greer, attended the launch in London. And at the same time, they accepted the baton to become the world's second national park city. So after a very rigorous assessment and submission process, we were finally awarded this new status, announced at the World Urban Parks Congress, and Adelaide was declared a National Park City in December 2021. And actually the Foundation's aim is for 25 national park cities across the world by 2025. So quite a process. The Foundation's Journey Book was produced in 2021, and it describes the steps and the criteria for achieving National Park City status. And there are, in fact, 23 criteria to be addressed, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a sec, but the process consists of three main components: the application and assessment of us meeting these criteria, the validation of our claims and the suitability of our people and our place, and then the launch and the celebration, which is currently taking place this month in June 2022. So in terms of the application component, these 23 criteria we brought together into chapters, and everything in green on the slide there went into the submission. So we had to collect a lot of evidence, identify our challenges, and seek a lot of community support. So we're not a national park city just because we have some fabulous parklands, national parks, waterways, and local parks. We're a national park city for many other reasons. And the criteria we needed to address explored our social, our cultural, our economic, and environmental landscapes, and asked some key questions. Is our place suitable? Are we visionary? Are we inclusive? Are we supported? And are we capable? Fundamental to our submission is our relationship with First Nations people and our work towards reconciliation. And the support of Kaurna Mayurna for Adelaide National Park City has been pivotal. Endorsement of the wider community has also been very important. We needed to demonstrate strong support from state and local government, from business, from community groups, and from families and individuals as well. We gathered around 2,300 signatures from the community for our charter that was online, and we conducted an independent poll to ascertain support for the project. And we were very pleasantly surprised because 15% of the community actually had heard of a national park city, and about 75% were very supportive of the concept. And that was back in November, before we were accredited or had done very much with a lot of public consultation, but not communications with the broader community. So the 23rd criteria is the creative portfolio itself, and that's the document that brings together all the contributions which contain the basis of our submission. We engaged a graphic designer, and I worked closely with this person to feed material as it became ready. We had a bit of a deadline; it had to be in by the end of last year. The designer also worked with a young student artist, Lucinda Penn, who was 21 years old last year at the University of Adelaide, and she created this piece of artwork, which you also see within the portfolio, the full scale of it, to illustrate and indicate and present an artistic expression of Adelaide National Park City, and the fact that it extends in a much larger area than the CBD and the city itself. So some of our big questions that we had to work through, for example, one is, where exactly is it? So in the green, you'll see the boundaries of the 17 Green Adelaide Metropolitan Council areas, and in the pink, you'll see the boundary of the Kaurna Native Title Claim. And the boundary of our National Park City is a soft boundary, and it sits somewhere between those lines. So it'll move outside into the hills, out into the coastal marine environment, north and south, and really is based on more of a geographical and a cultural categorisations rather than on just the boundary of Green Adelaide. So we had quite a lot of challenges in terms of things that we had to address. And this was a very thought-provoking aspect of the application. And while it's very inspiring to identify all the wonderful things, such as the nature and art festivals and the green spaces and the waterways and reservoirs and the actions to protect threatened species and the beautiful gardens and parklands, and many of the brilliant organisations working to engage with nature in so many ways, it was much more awkward to really properly articulate the challenges that we faced. But this is something that we needed to do. So one of these is simply, what does the term national park mean to people in Australia, and getting across that that difficulty of people thinking, well, national parks are particular places and they're kind of sanctuary zones, and so what can a national park city be? So I hope I've explained that we are inspired by national parks and the relationships people have with nature in national parks. Another one was the destructive effects of colonisation on land and people, the genuine reconciliation with First Nations, urban development, the modification of the landscape, the loss of ecosystem function and the loss of trees and vegetation in the process. We have the impacts of climate change and heat stress, bushfire risk, water resources, quality and green and blue space, and also canopy inequity. We have irritation with government over planning laws. We have changing political and economic agendas and the nature of cities generally, and the lack of connection to nature in cities, and balancing being acknowledged as one of the most livable cities in the world with all of these challenges. So the charter was developed based on the Universal Charter, the Global Charter, but to be more Adelaide specific. And we collaborated with local government, with First Nations people, with a lot of organisations to develop this charter. It is visionary. It guides us to work together for healthier places, for better decision making, for restored habitats, for enhanced connections, improved health and wellbeing, and greater diversity and inclusion, as well as climate resilience. And it also promotes sharing and celebrating what we have and what we can achieve together. And by the way, our what if questions are actually on our charter. It's just not on the screen here in the interest of space, but our actual charter, the full charter, is in the creative portfolio and on the Adelaide National Park City website. So once we had fulfilled the assessment criteria, we then had to go through a validation process. And normally the National Park City Foundation team would travel to a city and would validate the claims, have a look, meet people, talk. But of course, during COVID, this couldn't happen. So we had to do it differently. And we had several of these late night assessment meetings involving our team, plus the National Park City Foundation members in London and other countries, of approximately 2 hours each, with various presentations, various discussions, and often inviting in other guests. So this was us preparing for one of them. Alongside this, we organised very many interviews with diverse people across our greater city. And they also had independent interviews with people that they organised interviews with as well. We conducted an independent poll of residents of Greater Adelaide to ascertain their awareness, and I mentioned that before. And after we had done that and satisfied those criteria, we waited with bated breath and received the final tick on the 10th of December. So, look, one thing I learned very quickly about this was that it's not just about nature in cities. It is as much about the people and the opportunities for diverse parts of the population to engage and act. As much about moving forward and changing and improving and empowering as about celebrating what we have. And this is the full artwork by Lucinda that is, you may be aware, is currently being painted onto the huge wall, about 13 or 14 metres long and 3 or 4 metres high at Adelaide Airport at Gate 19 to welcome visitors to Adelaide and welcome them to the fact that we're a national park city. And that's part of our June launch that is currently in progress. So look, some of the key opportunities, and there are many as we see it, are about, it's a mechanism to engage around a collective ideal, to work with all sectors of the community and to draw on the various cultural relationships with nature. It's an opportunity to further the journey towards reconciliation with First Nations people through storytelling and learning and governance and leadership. It's about exploring more sustainable ways of living in all aspects that entails, about championing the importance of blue and green in the urban environment for all of its benefits, conserving biodiversity and habitat, and progressing towards cities becoming refugia for the future for very many species of life and wildlife. Creating more opportunities for people to connect with nature in urban environments. Creating opportunities and access for less engaged communities. So we're very interested in working more with the lower socioeconomic groups, with culturally and linguistically diverse groups, and people with disabilities. It's also an opportunity to influence planning and development using this international status, so including tree and vegetation loss, infill guidelines, and water management. To facilitate better understanding of the connections between nature and human health, and better physical, social, and mental health opportunities. Gaining further recognition as the most livable and attractive and happy place to live, work, and play. To foster delight in gardens and home gardens, trees, wildlife, and in growing food. Improving ecosystem services, and this is something I'm quite passionate about, and so becoming more climate resilient through having better functioning ecosystems. Bringing science and innovative thinking into design and buildings and use of technologies and into planning. And finally, for providing leadership, support, and guidance to cities around the world in their similar journeys. So Adelaide is a national park city because we've agreed to work together to create a city and beyond, rich with nature where people are actively engaged. It's very important that cities and urban places improve the way they create habitat for both people and all other life forms. And it's very important that people in all sectors and industries work with nature and not against it if we are to have a sustainable future. So we have a refreshed opportunity to promote the value of nature and being in nature and working with rather than against nature, and to make things more collaborative, more equitable, and more inclusive. And so our next steps, this whole launch is aimed at engaging individuals, whether that be in their gardens or in their homes, as well as groups. So our byline is everyone, everywhere, and every day. And of course, after June finishes, we've got a lot on our plate to further the connections, build the networks, create a more community-led governance framework, and work with other cities around the world. So what have we learned? We've learned that we have many challenges and we actually need to acknowledge and embrace them and be honest about them. We've learned that crazy deadlines can be good and bad. So we've got it done, but maybe not in all respects perfectly. We've learned that collaboration is critical for gathering the many voices and ideas and perspectives that come together to make good things happen. and that celebration is critical, especially when you realise what a wonderful place you live in and how enthusiastic so many people are about making life better. So there are fantastic opportunities. We just have to grasp them. And here's just a couple of images from our June launch currently. We have a photographer taking photographs as we go, so that we're collating an image bank and a video bank of the engagement, which we hope to use to inspire in the future. So thank you.
Excellent.
It was beautiful, Sheryn. Thank you very much.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. Wow, wonderful. I might just kick it off though, kind of start the session itself. You did mention there, Sheryn, that part of the charter and goals and abilities of it is around planning and affecting developments in that regard too. With how we still have a very much car vehicle focused city at the moment too, can the charter have any effect on planning in regards to transport itself too, to maybe move towards more be a more walkable city as to a more car focused city?
Well, look, I think it's not something that we can do in Green Adelaide, but it is something that we're hoping to be able to use this status, use this as a vehicle to achieve those kinds of changes, to be able to help to promote and influence the kind of changes that people do want in our city. For example, we have people like Stephen Yarwood as part of our group, who's very keen on those kinds of transports. There's many people involved who are contributing thoughts and ideas, but whatever it is that the community wants and needs to happen, we want to be able to use this as a vehicle to help make that happen. We don't have the power, we don't have the legislative power to do those sorts of things, but we would hope that this movement it is a movement. Those kinds of changes will be part of this movement.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries.
Can I ask a design-related question? Just as an architect, I'm very curious about what sort of database or information you might be gathering that we can use to inform our designs. So I know we always look, when we work on a site, we always look at the context and the background, cultural heritage, but also the habitat. Is that something that you're working and building up as well, that we can sort of tap into and use this knowledge?
One thing I can tell you is that Green Adelaide is working on an urban greening strategy as we speak, which is a very significant piece of work in collaboration with many organisations, all local governments, state government as well, to develop a strategy that is going to promote the urban greening in all of its manifestations. And in terms of urban design, that is part of the planning process, that is the changes that are underway. So also working with water sensitive South Australia and getting changes into how water is managed. So getting changes into the way into the way plants are embedded and nature is embedded into our landscape, and the way water is managed in our landscape. Those are the kinds of things that we're currently involved in. We're involved in reintroductions of some iconic species that have been lost from our landscapes. There's work happening in all sorts of facets. Coastal management, there's work happening in all sorts of facets. So Adelaide National Park City doesn't manage these things, but it gathers these things into its umbrella to promote the furthering, the betterment, the greener, more resilient, wilder community that we're after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you
to
for
work
that.
with landscape architects, for example, there's a lot of work in the landscape architecture space.
Yeah, absolutely. And they would be probably the biggest beneficiaries, or not beneficiaries, but the first people to interact in terms of the profession and the design area. But we did have a really good question from Tin. Tin, would you like to ask your question? Just unmute yourself and read it out.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the great presentation. I was just, as you were presenting it, I just thought the National Park City status was such a great way to, would be such a great way to present the city and the state in general as an ecotourism destination. So my question is about whether there's any collaborations or projects in place, say with tourism authorities like the Tourism Commission, to promote the city as an ecotourism destination.
So that's an excellent question, and there will be. So the next phase of, so we've only been around for 6 months and we've been working very hard to get these sort of basic things in plan, but working with tourism and the Tourism Commission is definitely something that we have planned for the next phase of the project. And working with ecotourism is obviously going to be a very important element of what we do in our collaborations that are coming up in the next 6 months. So I can't tell you that anything's yet been achieved, but now that, see, this June event was the final step in actually gathering the status. So we will soon receive a letter from the foundation saying we are now definitely a national park city. We've fulfilled every criteria that you could want, and now we can move into that next phase of engaging and collaborating and working with all sorts of other groups and agencies. And please, I would ask everybody to contact us. My email is just sheryn.pitman@sa.gov.au. Contact us with ideas, with concepts, with people to engage with. We're very appreciative of all of the work, of all of the input that you can provide to how it progresses future. Also for the governance of it in the future, the community-led governments, but as well for just what we plan, you know, in the immediate future. Please send your thoughts and ideas.
Great, certainly will.
Kathy, is it? Did you have any question yourself at all too there? Additionally, you did mention started another comment in response to Tin's comment in the chat there.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Looking at not the charter, but the other document, and I noticed there's a great number of councils that have been involved or that have signed up to the portfolio, the 23 concepts, I guess, that pillars that you're working through. Council, I'm in the Green Adelaide district, yet my council isn't one of the councils listed. Is there an aim to get more councils on board?
Sure. Of the 17 Green Adelaide councils, we have had, I'll be very honest with you, extremely good support from 15. So they've all expressed in principle support, but some have become much more active and engaged than others. And 15 of the councils are running events through June for their local communities in all sorts of ways. So I don't know which particular council you're in, but it really shouldn't matter. There will be ongoing collaborations. We have quarterly workshops with councils to find out what it is they would like, what we can offer, how we can come together to offer to the community. So it could just be that your council is still, you know, getting used to the concept, because this big engagement in June is the first time that you know, we've asked councils to actually do something other than just talk to us. So you look to the future. There will definitely be a lot more happening with local government. They're one of our big supporters. So just be patient is my suggestion there.
Okay, good, thanks. I like what you're doing. Great, fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks for your question and contribution there, Kathy. As we're kind of coming to the closes of our our session time here too. Again, thanks very much for joining us this morning, all, and thanks again to yourself, Sheryn. Just a final question though, for yourself, Sheryn. Do you know what other cities are doing as well to get on board, or how much other interest there is around the world to follow suit as well too, as we kind of break the ice with London?
Yes, so there's a number of cities that are quite far down the journey to become national park cities, and there's a number that are just beginning their journey. So some of the ones that are well engaged are Galway in Ireland, Southampton in the UK, Auckland is just beginning, Christchurch is just beginning, Breda in the Netherlands is partway down the journey. The Sacramento, there's Albuquerque, there's a whole, I think Milan maybe, there's a whole stack of cities that are looking to us now for leadership and looking to London. So one of the things I didn't mention is there are these two basic models of becoming a national park city. London was very community-led, very grassroots-led, and Adelaide was government-led.
Right.
So the aim is for both of those cities is for London to continue to gather government-type support and for Adelaide to continue to gather community-type support, and then to meet somewhere in the middle. Maybe not exactly in the middle, but somewhere in the middle. So that some of the cities will be government-led, some will be community-led, and then we will all work to aim to become a both government and community-based initiative. So all cities will have that aim. Galway is struggling, for example, to get local government support, but it's getting better now. Whereas we already have good relationships with government and local government, so that was easier for us. So all of the cities will come at it from a different point of view. Some are even being led more by research institutions, such as the impetus is coming out of a university, say. So all of the cities will have their own pathway and their own journey to getting to this place, and they'll all be a bit different.
And you've got London and Adelaide as kind of two templates and kind of SMEs as such as to the particular areas of where their basis has come from as well too, to help those other ones. So excellent. And furthering that network, as in the networking the ASBN as well too. Excellent. All right, well, as we are now kind of out of time for our normal session time frame, we'll look to close it there. Thanks very much for your time again this morning, Sheryn, and thanks very much to everyone joining us for SustainabiliTEA number 11. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. Thanks again, everyone. See ya.